The Cook. A historical fiction of love, identity and fate by S.J. Jeppsson. Chapter 25. A Mother's Hope. The morning sun streamed through the towering French windows, spilling golden light across the polished mahogany dining table. A pristine arrangement of china teacups, silver cutlery, and fresh flowers made the room feel less like a breakfast and more like a painting. The air was rich with the scent of fresh-baked pastries and steaming Darjeeling, laced with the faint perfume of lavender from Margaret Weatherby's gloves as she stirred honey into her cup with delicate precision. Kate sat rigidly in Lydia's chair, her hands clasped neatly in her lap beneath the table, her fingers pressing into the folds of her embroidered morning dress of soft cream muslin, trimmed with fine lace. She barely breathed as Charles Weatherby set aside his newspaper, his sharp, calculating eyes resting on her.
Lydia, my dear, Lord Hollingsworth is due with us this week. Something to look forward to, perhaps?
The words crashed into her like a rogue wave, threatening to drag her under. Kate kept her face carefully composed, willing herself to stay still, to keep breathing, to not let the room around her dissolve into something distant and unreal.
Thomas,
she echoed, the name foreign and weighty on her tongue. Margaret beamed, her dark eyes shimmering with excitement as she placed her cup delicately on its saucer.
Yes, darling,
Margaret exclaimed, her voice breathless with joy.
Only yesterday his letter came. He assures us he will be here within days. We shall have him with us for the ball and naturally for the wedding the week beyond.
She gave a fluttery laugh, her whole face alight.
Oh, how splendid it will be.
The wedding. Kate's stomach twisted violently, but she forced her hands to remain steady, her chin lifted just enough to mirror Lydia's practiced poise. They were already speaking of invitations and celebrations, of futures and expectations, as if nothing had changed, as if Lydia was still here. She hadn't expected them to get right back to business, not this soon. She lifted her porcelain teacup, allowing the warm steam to brush against her face, giving herself a moment, just one single moment, before she offered a careful, measured smile.
Of course, that's wonderful news.
The words were ash on her tongue, hollow and unnatural. Margaret tilted her head, a smile tugging at her lips, as she studied Kate with watery admiration.
You sound so elegant now, darling. So refined. Your voice has taken on the most charming English lilt. Almost aristocratic, really. I suppose 8 years abroad will do that.
She giggled, clearly charmed by the thought.
All the society ladies will simply swoon over how refined you sound.
She beamed, utterly oblivious to the way Kate's heart had just dropped into her stomach.
Honestly, it's perfect. Just perfect.
Kate offered a faint smile, unsure how to respond. She hadn't even thought about her accent, hadn't realized until that moment how jarring it might be, hearing an American girl return home sounding thoroughly English. Margaret sighed dreamily, reaching for a small buttery scone, slicing it open with a delicate silver knife, spreading clotted cream and tart raspberry jam over the flaky golden layers. She looked at Kate with nothing but pure adoration.
You must be relieved to have something joyful to look forward to after all you've been through.
Joyful. Kate swallowed against the rising tightness in her throat, her pulse drumming beneath her collarbone. She simply nodded, taking a small bite of toast she could barely taste. The rest of breakfast passed in a blur of pleasantries. Kate nodded when expected, let out the softest of laughs when Margaret made light conversation about wedding florals, sipped her tea carefully to avoid showing her trembling hands. But inside, her mind was spinning like a storm. Thomas Hollingsworth, a man she had never met, never even seen in a photograph. A man who believed he was engaged to Lydia Weatherby. A man who would arrive in a matter of days, expecting to find his future wife waiting for him. And the letter, Lydia's letter, was gone. Kate had delivered it herself, slipping it into the post aboard the Titanic with trembling fingers and a pounding heart. A secret letter which would never be sent. The sea had swallowed the ship whole. The mailroom, the bags of unsent correspondence, and all but one of the brave men who had fought to protect them. The letter had gone down alongside them. And now Lydia's voice was silenced. Whatever truth she had penned would never be known. And Thomas? How long before he saw through the lie? How long before he realized that the girl sitting at this table wearing Lydia's face was nothing more than a stranger? Her hands clenched into fists beneath the table hidden in the soft folds of her skirts. Lydia was gone. Lydia should be laughing over breakfast, dreaming of wedding details, writing to Thomas. But Lydia wasn't here. She was lost beneath the waves. And Kate was standing in her place. Not by choice, not for long. She would tell them, tomorrow or the next day, when the time was right. Because this wasn't her life, and it never would be. As the fine china was cleared and the sunlight stretched further across the gleaming oak floors, Margaret reached for Kate's hand, her grip soft, yet firm. Kate tensed, startled by the sudden warmth of the touch.
I know everything must feel overwhelming right now, darling.
Kate froze. Had she shown too much hesitation? Had she revealed something in her expression? But Margaret's gaze was gentle, her thumb brushing soothing circles over Kate's knuckles.
You've been through so much.
Her voice was thick with unspoken emotion.
I don't expect you to feel normal right away. But I promise you, with time, things will fall into place, and you'll be happy again.
She wondered if Margaret was reassuring her daughter, or herself. Because how could she ever be happy until she told them the truth? She could tell them Lydia was lost. But then what? She would have to explain why she had been wearing Lydia's dress, why she had Lydia's coat, her Titanic ticket, her name. And she could never tell them the real reason. She could never tell them that Lydia had run toward freedom, not tragedy. That the girl who had taught her to be fearless, to live without chains, had tried to escape a life she never wanted, only for the sea to take her anyway. Kate swallowed against the ache in her chest. Lydia wasn't just a girl who switched places with her. She was her friend, her wild, untamed, reckless friend. And now she was gone. Her chest ached with the weight of it, but she forced her expression into something fragile and hopeful, mirroring Lydia's mannerisms perfectly. A tilt of the head, a softened gaze, a gentle, delicate smile. She had never meant for it to go this far. She had planned to slip away before they even noticed. Before Charles and Margaret Weatherby had arrived at the docks. Before they had rushed to her, Lydia's name falling from their lips in relieved, breathless sobs. Before Margaret had crushed her in an embrace so fierce, so desperate, so full of grief and love that Kate had been unable to speak. She should have told them then. Should have pulled back, should have braced herself and said the words.
I'm so sorry. Lydia didn't make it.
But she hadn't. She had stood there, silent, her throat tight, her body shaking as Margaret had wept into her shoulder, Charles's hands gripping her arms as if making sure she was real. And when they had led her away from the chaos of the docks, away from the shattered, broken survivors of the Titanic, when they had placed her gently into the carriage, wrapped her in blankets, told her she was safe now, the words had stayed trapped in her throat. And now it was too late. She squeezed Margaret's hand in return, offering the smallest, most delicate of smiles.
Of course.
Margaret exhaled softly, pressing Kate's fingers once more before rising gracefully from the table. Kate watched her go, her stomach twisting, her pulse erratic. She had to keep lying. She had told herself she would only stay a night or two, long enough to slip away without suspicion. But every time she opened her mouth to speak the truth, She saw Margaret's eyes, still red-rimmed from weeping, saw Charles's shoulders, heavy with the grief of nearly losing their only child. And she couldn't do it. She had made her choice. She didn't know how long she could keep up this charade, didn't know how long she could pretend to be a girl who no longer existed. But for now, there would be no turning back, only forward, into the storm of another woman's life, a name not hers, a fate she could neither claim nor refuse.